Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone.
There's a moment, and maybe you've had it, where you catch your own reflection in a window, a mirror, the dark screen of your phone before it lights up, and for just a second, you don't recognize her. Not because you've aged, not because you're tired, though God knows you are, but because somewhere between raising children and keeping the peace and being what everyone needed you to be, the woman looking back at you became a stranger, a very capable stranger, a very responsible stranger. But a stranger all the same. That moment, that little freeze where your breath catches. That's not a crisis. That's not a symptom of something broken. That's the quiet whisper of your true self, knocking, still knocking, after all these years. I want to talk to you about authenticity, but not the way you've heard it talked about before. Not the Instagram version, not the self-help buzzword that gets stamped on coffee mugs and bookmark ribbons. I mean the real thing. The aching, terrifying, sacred thing of actually being yourself in a world that spent decades asking you to be something else. Because here's what nobody tells you about women like us, women in their 50s, 60s, 70s. We didn't lose ourselves all at once. It wasn't one dramatic moment. It was 1,000 small surrenders, so small you barely felt them. It was the opinion you swallowed at the dinner table because the argument wasn't worth it. It was the dream you folded up like a letter you never sent, tucked into a drawer, then forgotten when you moved, then just gone. It was the morning you looked at your calendar and realized there wasn't a single hour in it that belonged to you. Not truly. Each surrender felt like grace. Like maturity, like love even, and some of it was. I'm not here to talk you out of the love you gave. That love was real. That love mattered. But somewhere along the way, giving yourself away stopped being a choice and started being a reflex. And that's where we need to sit for a moment. Right there. In that uncomfortable, honest space. You know what it feels like to perform yourself, don't you? To walk into a room and already be calculating, what do they need from me today? Who should I be in this conversation? The dutiful daughter. The steady mother. The one who always knows what to say. The one who doesn't make it harder for anyone else. We became so fluent in that performance that we started mistaking it for identity. And the weight we carry, that low, persistent exhaustion that no amount of sleep quite fixes, a lot of that weight isn't age, sweetheart. It's the effort of maintaining the performance. It is exhausting to be a curated version of yourself every single day. To edit yourself in real time. To make yourself smaller, softer, more palatable. Exhausting and lonely. Because when people love the performance, there's always this hollow echo inside you that whispers, but do they love me? Authenticity isn't a personality type. It's not something you either have or you don't. It's a practice. A return, a quiet, sometimes scary, sometimes exhilarating return to the woman who existed before the world got its hands on her. She's still there. I want you to know that with everything I have. She didn't leave. She adapted. She survived. She waited in the sanctuary of your private thoughts, in the things that make you laugh when nobody's watching, in the music that breaks your heart open in the best way, in the anger you've been told isn't ladylike, in the dreams you think it's too late to claim. She's been there the whole time, and she is not too late. This is where we begin. Not with a list of things to fix, not with a prescription, but with a simple, radical act of honesty. The kind that starts not with the world, but with the woman in the window. The one who's been waiting for you to finally stop. Look at her and say, I see you. And I'm coming back for you. Let me ask you something, and I want you to really sit with it. When did you first learn that who you actually were wasn't quite enough? Was it a parent's voice? A teacher maybe? A husband, an ex, a sister, a culture, a church? Or was it so early, so woven into the fabric of how you were raised, that it doesn't even have a face anymore? It's just a feeling, a background hum. A voice that sounds suspiciously like your own by now, saying, "Don't be too much, don't want too much, don't take up too much space." That voice didn't come from nowhere. That's what I want to talk about now. Because before we can return to ourselves, before we can even find ourselves, we have to get honest about the stories we were handed. The ones we didn't write, the ones written for us, sometimes before we were old enough to hold a pencil. Every woman I've ever known carries a story she inherited. Maybe yours sounded like "good girls don't make a fuss," or "who do you think you are?" Or maybe it was more subtle than that. Nobody said a word, but you watched your mother disappear into everyone else's needs, and without anyone explaining it, you understood. This is what women do. This is what love looks like. This is the shape of a life well lived. We absorbed those stories the way children absorb everything, completely, uncritically, with total trust. Because we were children, we didn't have the tools to question them. We didn't know we were allowed to. And then we grew up. And those stories grew with us. They got sophisticated. They dressed themselves up in virtue, in words like selfless and strong and dependable. They learned to sound like compliments. She never complains. She always shows up. She's the glue that holds everything together. But here's the unspoken truth buried inside those compliments. The part nobody says out loud. The glue doesn't get to move. I think about the women I've sat with over the years. And I think about a particular kind of grief that doesn't have a clean name. It's not the grief of losing someone. It's the grief of realizing you lost yourself. Slowly, quietly, without a funeral or a marker or anyone to witness it. It usually surfaces somewhere between 55 and 70, right around the time the children are grown, or the career is winding down, or the marriage has settled into its long, familiar silence, or the body starts asking different questions than it used to. The noise that kept you busy, the beautiful, exhausting noise, starts to fade. And in that quiet, something surfaces. A question. A restlessness. A hunger with no clear name. Is this it? Is this all there was? Was there supposed to be more of me in this? That's not ingratitude. Please hear me say that. That is not a woman who doesn't value what she built. That is a woman who is finally still enough to hear her own heartbeat. And her heartbeat is telling her something true. The stories that caged us were rarely delivered with cruelty. That's what makes them so hard to examine. They came wrapped in love, in tradition, in the genuine beliefs of people who were themselves caged by the same stories. Your mother didn't teach you to disappear because she wanted to diminish you. She taught you what she knew. She passed on the survival manual she'd been given. Keep the peace. Be agreeable. Make yourself needed. Don't ask for too much or you'll end up alone. And her mother taught her the same. And her mother before that. We are, many of us, carrying stories that are not even one generation old in their questioning, stories that women in our mother's time had almost no permission to examine at all. Which means what you're doing right now. Just being willing to look at this. That is not a small thing. That is, in a very real sense, a revolutionary act. The quiet revolution of a woman who decides the story ends here. Who decides she gets to write the next chapter herself. But here's where it gets tender. And I won't rush past this part, because I think it's the part that trips most of us up. Examining the stories doesn't mean condemning the people who handed them to us. You can love your mother and grieve what she couldn't give you. Both. At the same time, you can honor the life you've lived, truly honor it, and still want more. Still want different. Still want the part of you that got set aside to finally have a turn. Authenticity doesn't require you to burn down what you've built. It doesn't require bitterness or a dramatic reinvention or leaving everyone and everything behind to go find yourself on a mountaintop somewhere. It requires something quieter, and in some ways much harder. It requires you to look at the cage, really look at it, and recognize something stunning. The door was never locked. It was just that nobody told you that you were allowed to open it. And you were so busy and so needed, and so good at being what everyone required that you never stopped long enough to try the handle. So let's try it now. Together. Not with a dramatic swing. Not with an announcement or an upheaval. Just a hand on the door. Just the quiet, radical willingness to ask, what do I actually think? What do I actually feel? What do I actually want? Not as a mother, not as a wife, not as the person everyone depends on, but as me. Just me. The woman underneath all of it. That question might feel strange in your mouth at first. It might feel selfish, which is exactly how you were trained to dismiss it. But it isn't selfish. It is the beginning of the most honest relationship you will ever have, the one with yourself. So let's say you believe me. Let's say you're sitting with the possibility, maybe for the first time in a long time, that there is a truer version of you still waiting. That the stories you inherited don't have to be the stories you die with. That the door was never locked. Now comes the part nobody warns you about. Coming home to yourself is not all candlelight and soft music. It's not a spa weekend or a journal prompt or a single conversation that cracks everything open in a beautiful, tidy way. Sometimes it's terrifying. Because the woman you've been performing for decades, she was safe. She was accepted. She was known. People had organized their love for you around her. Their expectations, their comfort, their sense of who you are, all of it built around the curated version. The agreeable one. The steady one. The one who didn't ask for too much. And when you start to become more real, when you start telling the truth a little more, wanting things out loud a little more, setting down the roles that never quite fit, people notice. And not always in ways that feel like celebration. That's the part we have to be honest about. Because I think a lot of women step up to the threshold of their own authenticity and then step back. Not because they don't want it, but because the social cost feels too high. Because the people they love seem most comfortable with the performance. Because being real feels like a threat to everything they've carefully built. And I won't tell you that fear is irrational. Sometimes it isn't. But I will tell you this. The cost of not coming home is higher. It just gets paid in slower, quieter currency, in resentment that builds like sediment, in a joy that stays just slightly out of reach, in the creeping suspicion that you are living adjacent to your own life rather than inside it. Authenticity, at its core, is about congruence. That's the word I want to offer you. Congruence. When what you feel on the inside matches what you express on the outside. When your yeses mean yes and your nos mean no. When you walk into a room as the same woman you are when you're alone. Think about the moments in your life when you felt most alive. Most like yourself. I'd be willing to bet they were moments of congruence. Moments when you said exactly what you meant and meant exactly what you said. When you made a choice that was entirely, unapologetically yours. When you stopped editing. Maybe it was a conversation where you finally told someone a hard truth. Maybe it was a creative thing, painting, gardening, cooking, writing, where your hands just moved and your mind went quiet, and for a little while you weren't performing anything for anyone. Maybe it was a moment of grief where you let yourself actually cry instead of holding it together for everyone else in the room. Those moments feel different. They feel like oxygen after a long time in a room with the windows closed. That feeling, that's your compass. That's your body telling you the direction home. Now, I want to address something that comes up every single time this conversation happens. The guilt. Because for women of our generation especially, stepping into your own truth. Wanting things, saying things, being things that are unapologetically you. It almost always comes packaged with guilt. Like they're sewn together. Like you can't have one without the other sitting right beside it, arms crossed waiting. You feel it, don't you? That little voice that says, who are you to want more? Look at everything you have. Look at everyone who needs you. Isn't this selfish? Isn't this ungrateful? Isn't this exactly what you were warned about? a woman who gets too focused on herself and loses what matters. I want you to look at that voice very carefully, because that voice was never protecting you. It was protecting the system that needed you compliant, available, unthreatening, and small. That voice was installed early and reinforced often, and it masqueraded as your conscience. But it isn't. Your conscience wants your wholeness. That voice just wants your silence. Here's the truth about selfishness that nobody tells women like us. There is a kind of giving that comes from fullness, from a self that is nourished and whole and genuinely present. And then there is a kind of giving that comes from depletion, from a woman who has hollowed herself out in service of everyone else, and now moves through her life on fumes, resentful and invisible and quietly desperate. The first kind of giving, the people in your life feel it. It's warm. It's real. It has life in it. The second kind, they feel that too, whether they say so or not. Coming home to yourself isn't abandoning the people you love. It's becoming someone with something real to offer them. It's showing up as a full person, not a function. And here is where the work gets practical. Quiet, but practical. Coming home to yourself doesn't require a grand gesture. It starts in the small, unguarded moments of your ordinary days. It starts with noticing, just noticing at first. When did you feel a flicker of something real today? When did you say yes and mean no? When did you shrink? And did you notice the shrinking in real time, or only later, in the shower, replaying it? It starts with one honest sentence where there used to be a deflection. It starts with staying in a conversation long enough to say what you actually think, instead of what will make everyone most comfortable. It starts with the sanctuary of your own private knowing, the quiet room inside you where you actually know what you feel, what you want, what you believe, and choosing, just occasionally at first, to let that room have a voice. It starts with small acts of fidelity to yourself, a preference honored, a boundary held, a creative impulse followed down its little path even when nothing comes of it, a morning claimed, a friendship released that costs more than it gives, a reflection in the window met, really met, with something gentler than judgment. You don't have to overhaul your life. You don't have to make announcements. You don't have to explain yourself to anyone. You just have to start choosing you, in small ways, consistently, as an act of love, not away from the people in your life, but toward the woman they deserve to actually know. Because here's what I know about women who come home to themselves. They become more, not less. More generous, not less. More present, not less. The love they give gets deeper because it comes from a truer place. The relationships that survive their authenticity become richer, more real, more sustaining than the carefully managed ones ever were. And the relationships that can't survive their authenticity, well, that tells you something important too. Something worth knowing. Something that, in the long run, is a gift, even when it doesn't feel like one. You are not too old for this. I need to say that plainly because I know it's in the room. The quiet resignation that says, maybe this was the time for this 20 years ago. Maybe the window has passed. It hasn't. In fact, and I mean this, the decades you've lived are not a disadvantage in this work. They are your material. You know things now that you didn't know at 35. You've survived things. You've outlasted things. You have earned a particular kind of clarity that only comes from having actually lived a life, not just anticipated one. The woman coming home to herself at 62 is not starting over. She is arriving. Finally, fully, with everything she's gathered along the way. And that arrival, it's worth every terrifying, gorgeous step. We've traveled a long way together in this conversation. We've stood in front of that window and really looked. We've traced the inherited stories back to their roots and held them up to the light without flinching. We've walked up to the threshold of coming home and acknowledged, honestly, bravely, that it's not always easy and it costs something real. And now we're here. The final movement, not a conclusion, not a tidy bow. Life doesn't work that way, and you know it better than most. This is more like a sending off, a hand on your shoulder. A moment between two women who've been sitting together long enough that the pretense has fallen away and only the true thing is left. So let me speak to you from that place. There is a version of you that is still becoming. I want you to feel the full weight of that sentence without immediately deflecting it. Without the little internal voice that says at my age, or it's a little late for that, or that sounds nice but. Just let it land. There is a version of you that is still becoming, not despite your age. Not in spite of everything you've been through, because of it. The becoming that happens in the second half of a life. When you've shed the frantic need to prove yourself, when you've survived losses that remade you, when you've finally run out of patience for your own performance. That becoming is different from anything that came before. It's slower sometimes, and quieter, but it's deeper, and it's yours in a way that nothing in the urgent, performing years quite was. I think about what authenticity actually looks like, not as a concept, but as a lived daily texture. And I want to paint it honestly, because I think sometimes we imagine it as a permanent state. An arrival point where you finally feel completely yourself all the time, where the doubts go quiet and the guilt dissolves, and you walk through every room of your life in perfect, untroubled wholeness. That's not what it is. Authenticity isn't a destination. It's a practice. A daily, imperfect, sometimes stumbling practice of choosing yourself. Choosing truth. Choosing congruence over comfort. Some days you'll do it beautifully. You'll say the thing you mean, hold the boundary that needed holding, make the choice that was yours and nobody else's. And you'll feel it, that deep rightness, that sense of being fully inhabited in your own life. And other days you'll catch yourself halfway through the old performance, 3/4 through an automatic yes that your whole body wanted to refuse. And you'll feel the familiar weight settle back on your shoulders like a coat you thought you'd finally hung up for good. That's not failure. That's the practice. That's how it actually goes. The difference between a woman living authentically and a woman who doesn't lie in whether she ever falters. It lies in whether she notices, whether she comes back, whether she keeps choosing gently and persistently the direction of herself. I want to talk to you about the unspoken truths. The ones that live in the deepest, most private room of who you are. The creative longing you've never fully explained to anyone, because you weren't sure you could justify it. The political conviction you've softened in mixed company your whole adult life. The spiritual questions that don't fit the framework you were handed and have been living alongside you, unanswered, for decades. The anger you were never allowed to name, not as rage, not the unseemly kind, but the legitimate, clarifying anger of a woman who was asked to accept less than she deserved and was too gracious to refuse. Those unspoken truths are not liabilities. They are the most interesting things about you. They are the texture of your real interior life. And the people who get to know them, truly know them, are the lucky ones, not the people who got the performance. The people who get you. Part of coming home to yourself is giving those unspoken truths a little more air. Not all at once. Not to everyone, but to the right people. In the right moments, letting them be spoken. Letting them be known. Because here's what I've learned about authenticity and intimacy. They are the same river. You cannot have real closeness, real, nourishing, soul-level closeness, with anyone while you are performing for them. The performance creates a glass wall. You can be seen, but not touched. You can be appreciated, but not truly known. And being known, not for what you do or how reliably you show up or how well you manage things, but simply known as a complex, textured, sometimes contradictory human being. That is one of the deepest needs we carry, and it can only be met through truth. Your authenticity is not just a gift to yourself. It is the gift that makes real love possible. So what do I want to leave you with? Not a list, not 5 steps, not an action plan, because this isn't that kind of work, and you don't need another item on a list that was already too long 20 years ago. I want to leave you with a few quiet things, small sanctuaries, things to carry. The first is permission, which I know you shouldn't need from me or from anyone, and yet, we were conditioned to wait for it. So consider this your permission, from one woman to another, offered with complete sincerity. You are allowed to be more yourself. You are allowed to want things. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to outgrow versions of yourself that serve their purpose and are simply done now. You are allowed to say, with gentleness, without drama, without a formal announcement to anyone, I am different than I was, and that is not a betrayal. That is a life doing what lives do. The second is patience. With yourself, specifically. The undoing of decades of careful performance doesn't happen in a weekend. You will catch yourself shrinking and not catch yourself shrinking in equal measure for a while. The voice that sounds like your conscience, but isn't, will still speak up reliably every time you try to take up a little more space. Be patient with the process. Trust the direction more than the pace. The third is company. Seek out the women, and they exist, more of them than you think, right in your own orbit, who are doing this same work, who are also trying on truth, who are also learning to say what they mean and want what they want without apologizing for the wanting. Those relationships will sustain you in ways you can barely imagine, because there is nothing quite like being in a room with women who have stopped performing for each other. The laughter is different. The conversation goes deeper faster. The relief of it, the sanctuary of true company, is extraordinary. And the fourth, the one I most want to press gently into your hands before we part, is this. The woman you are becoming is already worth knowing. Not the woman you'll be when you've figured it all out. Not the woman on the other side of all the work, all the growth, all the becoming. The woman you are right now, in the middle of the questioning, in the tender, uncertain, sometimes uncomfortable space of waking up to yourself. She is worth knowing. She deserves to be met. By the people in her life, yes. But first, most urgently, most essentially, by herself. You know, we spend so much of our lives making sure other people feel seen. It is one of the most beautiful and exhausting things about women like us. We are watchers. We are noticers. We are tuned to the needs and moods and quiet sufferings of everyone in the room, and we move through life adjusting ourselves accordingly, a constant gentle responsiveness that often goes completely unacknowledged. What would it mean to turn even a fraction of that exquisite attention toward yourself? To notice what you need in the room. To watch for signs of your quiet suffering. To ask, with the same tenderness you'd extend to anyone you loved, how are you really? What do you need today? What are you carrying that you don't have to carry alone? That practice, the practice of being a witness to your own interior life, is at the heart of everything. It is the beginning and the ongoing of authenticity. There's a woman standing in a window somewhere. She caught her own reflection and she paused. She didn't look away. Maybe she's been doing that her whole life, catching glimpses of herself and then turning back to everything that needed her. Always one more thing. Always someone else's season. Her own self, deferred again and again with the quiet, faithful patience of someone who trusts there will be time. There is time. There is still time. And the woman in the window. The real one, the whole one. The one with the unspoken truths and the unclaimed dreams and the magnificent, complicated interior life. She is not waiting to be rescued. She's just waiting to be chosen. Choose her. Every day, in every small way you can manage. She has been waiting long enough. And she is so very, very worth it.